Welcome to the Unpackers, the podcast of two boomers exploring the world of trading and investing, aiming for financial freedom and to make their kids proud. Join them on their mission.
We were always here for the more advanced traders.
It's not the gold what is expensive, it's money what became cheap.
Most of the time regulations are the reason why we cannot innovate.
Maybe that's like the kind of event that we need again.
Welcome to the Unpackers podcast. My name is Bart and I'm a trader on my way to profitability. My goal is to buy my son and myself a ticket to an FC Barcelona game, all paid for by my trading profits.
And my name is Ilko and I'm a data-driven trader. I'm always looking for the perfect setup. And some days I feel like I've cracked the code. But other days I feel like my kids randomly putting in some numbers would be a great idea.
My name is Joep Molenaar. Bart and Ilko call me the Gen Z Moonboy, and I'm here to help them to make their families proud.
And we are still in Dubai recording the podcast. And on my left is Vegar Oussi, Chief Operating Officer from BitGet. And on my right is Meyade and Vegar, Senior Business Developer for the European markets at Bybit. Gentlemen, welcome. I would love to say on our invitation here, which is true, but it is your home turf. You live in
I've been
Dubai?
here for 14 years. I'm almost local.
Almost a local.
And actually, we are unpacking a lot of this stuff for people like ourselves who are sitting behind Twitter and whatnot and asking how are events like Dubai Token 2049? What have you learned the last couple of days?
I think one key point about not only events, like about Dubai, is that everything is bigger in size, in capture, and everyone wants to do something bigger, better all the time. And I think one key point about like Token or any other event in Dubai is that it's always packed and it's always big. And I even noticed that the city got busier. And yesterday there were like 500 side events. I think like it's always like a losing my mind like what you have to do. And to my surprise, there are so many people who come during this week. They don't even go to conference. They just go to side events. They network. I've seen a lot of investment firms and coming and doing like a closed door meetings. And I think there's more things happening off the conference than on the conference this year.
Yeah, that really surprised me because you think people go to Dubai, you Google and why do people go to Dubai? It's for the main event, and then everything is more around and you go in a taxi to events and stuff like that. And that's
the side events. It's a lot more fun than the main event.
Yeah, but this year there were so many side conferences, like with the proper panels. People were discussing 2-day conferences that is happening in parallel. Yeah. And it's not even like a side event, it's side conference of a conference.
Yeah, right.
So the level is getting much better at these.
Yeah, also like I think the venue is too small. Like yesterday, I've been pushed around so much, like it's impossible to move, and that's the thing. Like people realize it, but also there is a cost factor, right? There's things that are super expensive in terms of the buying a ticket and getting to the venue, especially if you are, I don't know, a small influencer starting or a trader. Not so profitable. Then would you rather spend $600? I don't know what's the price of a ticket to come in there, but then you still have the access to the same minds and same people around. And I have noticed that there are several nice side events that organized not by a commercial interest, but by the a KOLs or the certain interest groups that you don't have an access when you are in Token. It's again a very commercial event, like all the companies come to present and speakers are very commercial oriented, and I think that is another shortcoming in my opinion, because we haven't seen much division of the speakers and versus the sponsors, and almost like all the big sponsors were speaking, and when they speak it becomes like a sales pitch rather than addressing a certain issue. For example, like this year, the main topic was security, and we yet to see a independent, professional coming and building a case study, or what happens to the stolen funds and how crypto laundry works, or maybe tokenomics. Like I've seen, met 2-3 nice scientists, like professionals who do an applied mathematics on the tokenomics and pricing strategy. Everyone needs tokenomics, but there was a zero topic about tokenomics and how that mathematics works. Because if you are a professor from Harvard or UCL doing applied maths, you don't have $20,000 to come and pitch 15 minutes. And probably you don't even need it because you do it for science purposes, not the commercial purposes.
Right,
And I think
right.
we need more stages where people of an independent mastery will come and teach something more valuable than a pitch. Like Bybit is here, us, and I've seen at least 10 other exchanges exhibiting and 10 exchange CEOs talking about how many users they have and what are their trading volume, and we probably all know. And there wasn't much new information, in my opinion.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that there's a lack of, this insights on the talks?
Because it's like a commercial transaction, and especially like we've been sponsoring token for I know almost all editions. Our CEO Gracie and I were speaking like last 4 or 5 editions all the time, and as a business we have a core positioning and what we want to do whenever we have a stage to sell the product, to promote the product, and there's nothing wrong with it, but also you can't expect me to come and take that valuable and materially valuable time and present you a hypothetical case study on a certain issue, because it's not my point of an interest as a representative of a business. But as an organizer, you could definitely pull in, I don't know, a professor who could come and explain us how to build a better tokenomics for people who come new to the industry or people who want to adjust, and then you would have that like forum of discussing ideas rather than all of us on coming and exhibiting the same thing.
But basically, if it's getting a circus, it's almost that's what you're saying. If it gets too one-sided,
I don't think it's becoming a circus. I think it's becoming a very commercial platform with a pure transactional intent that forces to have more side events that can be less or more independent and less transactional. And I don't think that it's necessarily like one needs to just change to another, but in my opinion, like I wanted to come to the point like why there are so many people coming and not going to token but enjoying the side events is that side events sometimes are more focused on a particular niche. If you're a content creator, you want to meet other content creators, or if you are, I don't know, doing a certain interest group, or maybe you are a family offices, you come together to discuss how to hedge against traditional markets, and you don't want to necessarily go and you see 10 exchanges out there, and you can find your interest and you can still be together, and everyone comes to become in this one place, and it becomes, in my opinion, like a good talking point. And sometimes side events are much productive and fruitful than going and roaming around a very crowded space.
True.
Yeah, we were also talking about it a few days ago, that when you go to Token 49, everyone that you speak to is just asking to get listed on Bybit, right? That's basically the main goal of most people.
Yeah, if you're, and I'm sure it's also for other exchanges, but indeed, if you walk at Token 249 and you're there with your Bybit shirt or any other exchange, the first question most of the people ask is, we want to get listed. How do we get listed?
Ridiculous.
Which is not the most insightful, conversations that you have. But on the other side, they're trying, right? You give them some credits for the trying. And if you look at those side events, yesterday, like you said, there were hundreds of side events. Like, which one do you choose, right? It's really hard. Like, and the traffic was really bad in Dubai. So you cannot go from one to the other, right? Because you're gonna miss out on the other one. So in the end, I chose to go to our Bybit event, which was a safe way. There was a KO event I really wanted to attend, but the traffic in Dubai is it's not good. It's not good.
It's one of the very few things that isn't that convenient in Dubai.
That's true.
I don't agree. Like compared to token in Singapore, when they shut down entire city for Formula One and you can't even find a cab, I think Dubai is still a heaven. If you compare token to token,
Right, that's true. That's true.
that's a comparison that we cannot make yet. So very much looking forward to be able to draw
Sure,
the conclusion, whatever it will be the conclusion. But I think it's nice that you touch upon, let's say, the technology side of blockchain, because if you are running around here, it almost seems purely about the speculation aspect of crypto. So yeah, since you started about it, what kind of topic would you, let's say, like to discuss now around blockchain? Because once we had this dream that blockchain would change the world, but not so much anymore. What would you like to talk about?
I think the biggest topic I'm very passionate about, like from since day one, was not about earning in chain, but was about actually living on chain. And when I say living on chain, it's about getting your salary on chain. I don't know, you want to trade, you want to stake, you want to save your money, but also you have to be able to spend your money without living. Today it's very fragmented. Today, if you want to do something with your crypto money, you have to go off-ramp it, I don't know, do P2P, whatsoever method, turn it into government printed paper money, then put to the bank or do cash transaction. But in many places, the cash transactions are very limited, especially, let's say, I live part-time in UK and I know that like more than £2,000, you can't even go buy anything. It means you are still dependent on an old system. And in my opinion, if you want to truly onboard 1 billion users, these people, you can't find 1 billion traders, and you shouldn't be finding 1 billion traders, but you should find 1 billion people who want to buy, I don't know, coffee, or people in economies where they don't have an access to foreign currency, or places like Argentina or Turkey where inflation rate is 90%. You want a safer place to have your money and agility to spend it. And I think what we have to talk more about, how we can make this point-to-point journey for every user where you can live on chain without actually going to traditional markets, going to traditional institutions, and being truly free. And I think that was the first idea of Bitcoin and white paper of peer-to-peer transactions, bypassing that standard institutions that out there. But unfortunately, at least last 6 months, all we talk about Trump family, politics, people who have an access to Intel and how they benefit, and how MicroStrategy buys so much Bitcoin that it lost its whole idea, right? We all are excited that institutional money is coming. BlackRock is, I don't know, doing Bitcoin ETFs, but all of these aspects are totally against the idea of peer-to-peer payment, Satoshi white paper, and whatsoever this industry should stand for is not standing for.
Don't you think it's going to be very difficult to really implement that, because the traditional banks and markets and governments have been there for centuries and decades already? And if people start using crypto instead, then what use do banks have? And they will all vanish, or at least a lot of them will go away. And I think to make that transition, they will probably do everything in their power to prevent that from happening, because otherwise there's no sense for banks to be there anymore. If you can put your money into USDT and stake it for a bigger interest than you get at the bank, and also pay with it and use it for transactions, I think that is like really difficult.
This is a good point. And the journalist asked me this question, and the question was that all centralized exchanges with KYCs and so on, they're becoming like a bank-like organization. And I told, yes, after 3 years, you will come and tell me that banks are becoming centralized exchanges. And it is the way you just go to the need of a customer. And when we talk about technology, I believe when Apple Pay introduced Apple Pay, no one actually thought that they need, I don't know, bank card in the phone. And today we don't even have wallets. Therefore, I think the easier and faster things become. And why I talk about payments. Today, let's say you guys travel to Dubai and you use your bank card to pay, and merchant pays 2-3% commission for every bank card transaction. And it takes 15 to 30 days for merchant actually get that cash in their bank account. If you did that transaction using a crypto transfer, merchant would immediately get that money. And when we talk about merchants having that money faster in their bank account, saves everyone's life and makes it easier and faster to operate. And I think that is the beauty of technology we need to talk about, rather than focusing on that, or what is, I don't know, next 100x meme token. But unfortunately, we are not.
And is that also one of the reasons why you guys have introduced the Bybit card?
I mean, the Bybit card is a wonderful product, and I think it's a step towards what you're saying, the gap between Web 2 and Web 3 world. It's essentially, again, a MasterCard, right? And we integrate it with our own wallets. I think what's really cool is that we introduced a Bybit Pay, which essentially enables merchant to make a bank account, a Bybit account, and you have your Bybit account and you pay peer-to-peer from Bybit account to Bybit account, right? It's essentially, the Satoshi vision, peer-to-peer through a centralized exchange. And, I'm responsible for Europe, but there are so many cities and countries in the world where they don't have a good financial system, right? Like you said, Argentina, Brazil, Turkey, and those people are in need, of those kind of systems, and we're happy to take a part of it. And I hope that the rest industry also focuses more on this than indeed the meme tokens and all this other stuff.
In that sense, actually, the bigger centralized exchanges like Bybit and BitGet should also be working together, because there's certain people that want to use Bybit, certain people that want to use BitGet, but if Bybit customers can only transfer money peer-to-peer to other Bybit customers, then we're also having a big problem. Because when I'm using a Dutch bank, Rabobank, for example, I can still transfer money to ING.
Yeah, but you can definitely do it. For example, with BitGet Pay, I'm sure with the Bybit Pay also, you can use any exchange or wallet, you can pay to the merchant. Virtually, the merchant is having a seat or a wallet, and that's all. And it's a very key point mentioned, because when we look at global banking, almost 40% of people globally are unbanked. They don't have access to the bank. And 70% of them are women. And then when you go Southeast Asia, Latin America, Eastern Europe, you will see so many small businesses that can't have means to go and pay that theft fees and have the card payment post-terminal machines, while setting up Bybit account, BitGet account, any crypto wallet takes a second.
Yeah.
But I love this discussion about technology. That's it's somehow refreshing in Dubai, where it all seems to be about the Lamborghini indeed. But if you, zoom out and take a step 20 years from now, how would you describe then how we look back at this period of, we were building, and that's sort of the moment we were in that space, and afterwards that happened and it led to the situation in 20 years. How would you describe it?
I mean, if you look at the current centralized exchanges, you see that we're much more innovative than the current banking systems. They have all these regulations, and on the other side, we also tend to have a lot of regulations, especially for example in Europe, and most of the time regulations are the reason why we cannot innovate, right? Which is an interesting point. But on the other side, I do believe, with, for example, the Bybit Car, Bybit Pay, or any of these products. But I also saw an exchange in the US that now offering mortgages to their customers. I mean, those are ways where indeed what you're saying, in the end, you don't need your traditional bank account anymore. You can just be on the Web3 world and don't have to step into the Web2 world anymore. Everything is happening in the Web3 world. So in 20 years from now, I hope that people will be just, connected to this Web3 world, like in Ready Player One, those kind of fantasy lives. That'll be great. We have so much more to do. And I think part of it is also education. I mean, education plays a key role in it, and it all starts, with the parents or with the schools. And I also do hope that not only crypto, but also financial education in itself will be taught more, because we live in difficult times with all the inflation, and if you in itself don't know how to combat yourself against inflation, then you also don't know why you should be into crypto, right? So it's first start with the base, instead of going from nothing to bam, I should go into meme coins and go times 100. First the base.
Back to why it doesn't scale yet. Is that what would be the moment that it really starts scaling? Is that when the traditional big tech giants will come along, or can we as Web3 companies, scale it ourselves?
I think when we talk about scaling, we have to understand why people should come, right? You guys, when you live in Europe, you have a different motivation to adopt than people in another part of the world. Some people, let's say, if you are in Venezuela, you can't do anything with your money, or Zimbabwe, then you need an alternative. You are physically forced to come and explore an alternative option. My family lives in Turkey, and 6 years grandma's has wallet, and there are OTC desks down next to the grocery store, because this is the only way to survive. Then you are forcefully get this adoption. And the same way we all got adopted to remote work and digital documents with the pandemic, it was so fast because we all were forced, not like we wanted to be. And I think we need a bigger event. I hope it's not another pandemic, bigger event that will force people to move. And I think we are now living in an era where people, especially outside US, we start understanding that US economy and US printed money isn't as strong and as stable. Today you travel to Europe, understand how much dollar lost its value. Today you trade all-time high gold, but it's not the gold what is expensive, it's money what became cheap. And we realize that the risk safety we thought about traditional markets is not as safe. Nvidia stock can go down so much in one day with and DeepSeek AI, or with a single tweet of Trump about the tariffs, it can go back. And all these things that we believed were too stable are not as stable, and then things we thought very volatile like Bitcoin isn't actually that volatile. And this decoupling, I think, will bring more people to be forced to adopt the technology, to come and hold digital assets, rather than just going and saying, oh, this is the new cool thing, this is faster, this is better, and that's it.
Maybe to touch upon that. So you have two solutions, right? One solution is you change the system from inside, right? You talk about, Turkey, Venezuela, Zimbabwe. You can change the system from inside to make it better, or you make a solution on the outside and walk people towards that solution, right? Why wouldn't you? I mean, what's your thoughts on changing the system from inside? The government spending all this other stuff instead of trying to get people to the outside solution.
I have no answer, to be honest. But in my opinion, there are things that like power of will, right? It's maybe kind of going to a gym. One thing, you are forced to do something, like the same way you wake up every day at 9, go to work. If you don't follow the discipline, you'll get fired. But you can compromise, and not always you are able to wake up at 6, go to the gym. Because one thing is like an outsource, like a power that is pressuring you. The same thing with getting a crypto account, because you can't have a bank account. Another thing is that you have a bank account, but do you also get a crypto account?
So maybe like in 2008 we saw a bunch of banks collapse. Maybe that's like the kind of event that we need again.
Yeah, or a bunch of banks will offer you self-custody wallet. They don't have to collapse. That's the thing. I think when we talk about financial systems, we always think that one should replace other, but we forget how they can change. The same way you can look at the stock exchanges, right? Today, almost all your Revolut and neobanks will offer you stock trading, and people start trading, and it became so massive. I remember that, in 90s and early 2000s, only a handful of people knew how Forex works or how financial markets work. But today, everyone has, some sort of saving in stocks, Tesla stocks, and they do S&P 500. And talking about your point in how you beat inflation, I think that's like a financial knowledge, right? You have to beat inflation, then you have to beat S&P 500, then you have to beat, real estate market, and then can you beat Bitcoin, right? Because I think whenever we talk about trading side of the crypto, no more we care about, Bitcoin was like a best performing asset for last 10 years. Now more and more traders and companies and financial institutions were like, how we can beat Bitcoin. That becomes a new phenomenon that we never thought about it, because we always thought, how we beat, Nancy Pelosi when you do or Warren Buffett, right?
Yeah, it's really hard to beat. And on the other side, also, Yip, is we have a new generation standing up, and they have a different view on banks than the older generation, right?
True.
And I do believe my generation, I'm 30 years old, young, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I feel 80. But at some point, we'll look at centralized exchanges like, hey, those guys, were actually, there for us. They helped us. They made us in a good financial position. And the banks, they feel like, they are not part of that community, right? They see all the things that happened in 2008. There were some fines, but no one went to jail. And one person once told me, if you try to change the system from inside, you're in the end still part of that system, right? You just go into the big stuff. So that's why it's always good to try to change it from outside, and those big centralized exchanges are trying it, and I think that's a very good thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
So you almost see yourself as an crusader or something for the good?
We try to.
Crusade's good.
Well, there's a new version apparently. Yeah.
Well, I just like to label it in my brain somehow. And you just mentioned countries like Argentina, Turkey, just bridging it back to the present day. Is that also where most of your volume and users are right now?
I mean, those emerging markets is a big part of Bybit and any other exchange, because again, like you said very well, they have a different reason of joining those centralized exchanges than people in Europe do, right? We also see that in campaigns that we do. I mean, I'm just going to give you an example. In Netherlands, where I'm based, we don't really care about the $20 free deposit bonus, because it's like, it's just a small thing. But in other countries, $20 is a lot of money, right? So they have different reasons, and we do see a big inflow from these kind of countries. And again, the volume is different, right? Because for certain, in Europe, we have more to spend than in those countries. But we do see a lot more adoption from those countries because they actually understand what crypto can bring them. And not only on the financial part, but also on the freedom part.
But would you say then that users in different parts of the world use your services differently? So let's say
yes,
just
100%.
speculating, fun, the hobby. Can we beat the market? Can we do it?
Yeah.
Versus we really need it.
Yeah. For example, in Netherlands and in Western Europe, we like trading. Because we can lose, right? We're able to lose, and the next month we get another 3 or 5K from my salary, and I can redeposit again. And we see in other countries, in emerging markets, they do a lot more with earnings, with airdrops, with the Bybit card, all this other stuff, and not so much on the trading side because they cannot always afford to lose that money. Yeah. So again, tailored to different parts of the world. I'm sure that's for every big centralized exchange out there.
I actually notice the same in my community all the time. People that are like from more poorer countries, Southeast Asia, but also maybe Turkey. Those kind of guys, they apply risk management much more strict than people that are, for example, from the Netherlands. It's actually a thing that I had to think about because I know a bunch of people in my community pretty well, and I know how they manage their money. I know what their wallets look like almost. They tell me. And the kind of guys that are from the more poor countries, they do really have such a different approach to trading and investing compared to people that are from richer Western European countries, for example.
And I even saw that you have a lot of Russian adoption as well, or you visited Russia for conferences.
Yeah, I speak Russian language, and I'm very favorite among the Russian community. And we have a huge following across the entire CIS region. And I think that's one of the also fastest growing.
But then in the light of the discussion that we just had, is it more speculation over there, or indeed could you classify it as well as a, let's say, a developing country which needs the innovation in the finance system?
Definitely they need innovation and finance system, considering that because of the sanctions, they're cut out of the SWIFT system.
And they can use crypto to still pay for certain stuff.
Yeah, even like it's not a global thing. Like people need to, I don't know, subscribe for Netflix, right? And if you don't have a Visa MasterCard, how are you gonna pay for it?
Yeah.
And then you need to find a way. And there are so many like basic things that is really important, and you don't understand its value when you live in a developed world like UK or Netherlands or Germany, where things are default for you, that you can, I don't know, send your bill and open a bank account and then have 10 different cards delivered at your doorsteps through neobanks with no fee and I don't know whatsoever. And you have insurance, and if someone steals your money, you call bank. Like all these things are luxury that are not available to billions of people globally.
All right.
And also the way people look into things are very different. I've been last year in India for Blockchain Week, and we were having a similar conversation, and the interviewer told me that like institutions are coming because we were doing a huge promotion around our institution offering. They were like, now like institutions have a lot of money and they will be kind of putting that 5% and do like 100x. And I took 30 minutes explaining that institutions are not interested in 100x. They're using crypto as a hedging tool. This is a very different phenomenon that you can't explain to a person whose disposable income is $100.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It is a very different way of thinking. When you have $100, you want to use it in the best way possible. But when you have $100 million, you don't want to lose that. And then you have to diversify, hedge, and use a different, like a financial instrument and vehicles. And the way you look at the world is very different. And similarly, when you're in a developed country, the way you look at the world is very different. Like in, let's say, Southeast Asia, you can pay crypto to the Grab a taxi app because probably you don't have a bank account or bank card. While in Europe, you don't, because you have 5-10 bank cards, and getting a card is, I don't know, delivered at your doorstep.
Sure.
Yeah.
Basically, also like the sanctions that the countries did against Russia, they were also affecting obviously the citizens, because they can't use Netflix anymore and a bunch of other stuff. And So they were basically like what we were also talking about before, forced to start stepping into Web3 and start using centralized exchange and start using crypto in order
It's
to
the driver
pay.
for innovation.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That is also what I meant with the collapses of the banks, for example. You need those sort of events in order to get people to start using crypto for payments. And yeah, this is, I think, one of those examples.
And also like need for foreign exchange, like Russian ruble like was losing its value. Like in one day it went from, I don't know, 70 ruble per dollar to 90. And these people can't usually go to the bank and buy the dollars because of the sanctions, and they have like a daily limits. Also in many Central Asian countries, like you will have 2-3 rates, like a black market official rate, and government bank will sell you on like a $200 a month. And how you get access to the foreign currency, USDT, then it's like you are forced for it. Like,
Interesting.
What are some cool, I don't know, practical examples that you think of by the top of your mind that, I don't know, that we as a spoiled Western people do not see?
the having access to bank account, even like being, okay, let's give a very different example. Not only like a people in Europe, but let's say you are a foreigner, a student, or a new employee who moved to a European country. And it happened to me when I was student and I was in UK. I had to open a bank account. To open a bank account, you need to have a proof of address for 3 months. But to rent a place, you need a bank account. And it becomes this vicious circle. And how you break it, right? But when you are born and you're born in Europe and all these things like by default were happening for you. And I'm still talking about non-Europeans in Europe. We didn't go further. But if you can go today, I don't know, to Nepal, some people don't even have like a transport to go to the town center or in India to open a bank account. And most of the people even don't have, I don't know, proof of address. And in many countries, banks will charge you $25 or $20 fee if you don't deposit certain amount of money. And then it means renting a bank account is a luxury in itself in many, many places of the world, while in other places it is nothing. And that is, I think, the one thing we, like, for example, the reason like BitGet could grow super fast, when I took over 2.5 years ago, I told that every country will run independently. They will have their own budget. They will do their own marketing campaigns. Because me sitting in Dubai I can't know what's happening in Indonesia, what is the local need and local approach, and that propelled our growth. We had like a 5x growth in last year from 25 million users to 100 million users, and like these local insights are very, very important. And most of the time, why, for example, Uber, an American startup, could never be successful in Middle East, we have Kareem, or in Southeast Asia, Grab, because even though the service in the top level is simple, right? We need a taxi, you match make, but actually to implement it locally, you needed a local force, and that's why eventually the Uber had to make a deal with both ventures.
Okay, this conversation turned out a lot different than I had in mind with my Western context, but that's a good one. And I can choose between all those exchanges right now. How do I know which one to list? Why would I list on Bybit or on BitGet or whatever is out there? What would I do? How would you choose?
I mean, every exchange has their different ups and downs, right? Well, looking, for example, at Bybit and the local competitors. Bybit started as a derivatives exchange, right? We introduced spot quite late, I would say. And we were always here for the more advanced traders, right? Our trading engine is good, our UX, UI is good. And there are other exchanges out there that have a really simple blue and white, UX, UI, just a
word perfect.
Yeah, just a really big buy and sell button. And some people come to our exchange saying like, wow, you guys have all these products, all these tools, all these things. It's perfect for me. And some people come to our exchange and like, wow, it's overwhelming for me. I don't know how to navigate. I'm going to go to a simple UX UI. So I asked Ben, our CEO 2 years ago when I was hired, or 3 years ago, I said like, hey, we kind of need also a simplified UX UI. And he said something very interesting. He said like, we as Bybit are going to focus on the advanced traders. However, we are the warehouse. What that means is those simple UX UI platforms, we actually work with them. We give them their liquidity. So they do what they do. We do what we do. But if you go to a simple UX UI in a local region and you buy Bitcoin there, most of the time they buy the Bitcoin on our platform. So we still generate profit from those kind of UX UIs while we still can focus on our own good thing. So yeah, that's a good thing to know. And at Bybit, even though we try to be here for the more advanced traders, with products like Bybit Card, we also try here to be for the retail traders. And I think education and having a face in the country itself, like you say, local countries, local people that are working there is really valuable, because you want to be localized, and you're going to be localized if you're an Asian exchange coming to the Western world. Like, hey, we're here with our lucky spins whatsoever. Different approaches go for every different regions, and Bybit is learning and doing that in a good way. Yeah.
Cool.
So you would almost, as well as a trader, think of what approach do I have? Do I is it invest or spot trade or more advanced, and then almost have a bucket of exchanges, if you will? To
a more advanced trader probably knows where he's going, right? He's looking at the fees, he's looking at the spreads, he's looking at the liquidity, and he probably knows from himself, what's the best exchange for him. And it's most of the time the retail traders that don't know where they have to go. So also for other exchanges, it's most of the time the retail traders that we try to convince to come in, and with the VIPs we try to convince them, with lower fees, better liquidity, better spot markets. It's a challenge, but again, we're trying to do it as a team.
Well, you're doing quite a good job. As is BitGet. How do you classify BitGet? Also for the more advanced trader?
Honestly, I don't believe in advanced traders, and I don't believe newbies. And our strategy from day one was that we don't want to have a light version, pro version. We want to build the simple, best product available. And I always say, we in crypto talk about barrier to entry, and unless we can have one red button where you click and you are in Web3, it means barrier is high. And with all the KYCs, million clicks you have to do, I think it's already complicated. Therefore, we don't want to overcomplicate, but we still want to provide the best tools out there. And for me, BitGet isn't just a single tool for a power user. For us, BitGet is a lifestyle, and our focus is everywhere between safety and security and protection to principal guaranteed earning models, a lot of interesting projects that you can discover. Now we have BitGet on-chain, basically allowing you to do any decentralized transaction but still have the safety and security of centralized exchange. You can buy a token that's not listed on us, but you can do that transaction on-chain.
I didn't know that.
But if I'm a new user and I have to choose an exchange, definitely having UI UX is important. Safety and track record is important. Going to CoinMarketCap and seeing the trading volume is important. But I think the biggest competition in between, Bybit, BitGet, Binance, MXC, OKX, whoever you name it, as a user, for me, it will be to understand the listed tokens, because I think that is the offering, right? The same way you go to different supermarket because they have different products on the shelf. And you, in my opinion, you don't want to have a choice fatigue where you have 4,000, 5,000 projects, but you don't also want to go to a place where you only have 200 projects and you are kind of missing out, especially for people who watch us. They know that this biggest stigma in the industry when the project is listed on centralized exchange. This is kind of a last point before they go to die.
Yeah, Binance.
Hell yeah.
Always the Binance listings it's like a free short after a couple of days. Let it pump and then just short it back down.
And that's why we are trying to bring the
New
best
strategy.
project in the fastest time possible. And that's why we are doing pre-market, on-chain offering, and many other things that we want our customers to capture the opportunity before it becomes too mainstream and dies. And I think that is where we should be, and we all kind of fighting for the customers' attention, the projects we want to list. And you mentioned a funny point that at the conferences everyone reaches out to you to how to get listed, but also it's a very important point how we choose the right project to list.
Yeah, and on top of that, of course, next to projects is also of course the products, like you also said, right? The earnings, the stakings, etc. Yeah.
It's a full suite of the product the same way, you don't want to miss out, the same way you have a payment and card, I don't know, maybe any other things that out there, because at the end of the day it's money. And we have in Turkey the famous saying that when you count money, some sticks into your hands. And when you do something with money, you want to actually do many things with that money. And it's not always the trading. Even professional traders, sometimes they have a downtime, they don't want to trade, but they're still the money. And the same way you wouldn't put money lie around in your bank account, you want to go stake, you want to explore, you're going to farm, you're going to, do retro drops and so many other things out there. That could actually be an interesting way of making the best use of the funds you have.
Yeah, well said.
You triggered me actually with a thought. The fact that there are other exchanges out there with more simplified UI, whatever. Aren't there just too many exchanges? And translating it into a questions, because he forced me to ask shorter questions, which I think I'm miserably failing.
Not really working, Bart.
We'll cut it out. Why is this sector not eating others up more than they do? Why are these small ones keeping to exist?
I mean, if you look at Europe, we of course have the MiCA regulations coming up, which by itself, and we also saw it in the Netherlands with the DNB regulations, that some exchanges are not just feasible anymore to work in this environment, right? The costs are too high, the ROI is too low, and they in itself, go broke or they die out, right? We go into a time, I believe, where there's going to be much more regulation, and you can say like, "Hey, that's good or not good for the space." I think it's good up until a certain point, but that will also mean that certain exchanges will have a harder time to cope with those regulations because most of their, offerings are based on not having any regulations. And on the other side, I do believe that you talked about USPs beforehand. We see in the Western world that they find security really important, but also regulations, right? Like which exchanges are regulated, and do I feel safe to put my money there, right? Because we've seen we've seen enough in the Web3 space, also in the Web2 space, with banks, collapsing, and just want to be sure, like, okay, if I put my money there, is it safe? Do I trust the CEO, whoever? The track record, really important, how long is the track record? And yeah, in the end, they're going to be, I believe, a couple of big ones, like with every industry, probably.
Like the beer and the car market. So,
exactly. And a couple of small ones with their niches. We see, for example, Deribit, a good friend of ours, really focused on options. It's a really niche, but it's out there, right? And they're big in their own niche.
They were just sold for a couple of $1 billion, right? Am I correct?
I think it's almost sold. I just heard from insiders it's not sold yet, but indeed, also those ones are going to be sold again to the bigger ones, and just you capture that niche as a big exchange.
Do you feel like, this is a question for the both of you, like a lot of those smaller exchanges will also collapse at some point throughout the coming 5 or 10 years?
Collapse, but also talking to these founders, and at some point they said like, we cannot cope against a Bybit or BitGet or Binance. They just have so much more money than we do, and you come to the conclusion like, or will I continue with this niche, or I will just sell my clients to the bigger one and just fuse. And most of them go for the second part.
Yeah, like it happened with the banks over the past couple of decades.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's more than collapse. It's like more of a consolidation. Yeah. But also, like he mentioned, a very important point, and I think like Bybit is like kind of an inventors of the entire affiliate marketing system. And like when you talk about exchange, you have to differentiate who is on actual exchange with own money, liquidity, customers, and who are the like white label solution affiliates. The same way they like a car manufacturer and car dealer, right? There's two different things, or distributors, and there are so many small players that are actually a front, and they do profit share with the big exchanges in the background, that not necessarily like they can survive because they are the same way that affiliate marketing or affiliate schemas work. And that is a very important point to differentiate when you zoom in, and when you are like an industry OG and people, that there isn't like so many players as it seems. There isn't like, 800 exchanges that all have their own infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah.
And your title is specifically for that you're a developer for the European markets.
Yep.
I was wondering, what does BitGet also have a, let's say, European business development representative, or what is the European strategy in that sense?
Yeah, definitely. But as I mentioned, like our goal and model is not that we don't have like a too much hierarchy. It's a very flat organization, but every country runs independently. They have their country manager, and they have the team, and they have virtually unlimited budget, and they have their own profit and losses. It's a very intriguing model to run, and it's more towards decentralization and being a synchronous organization rather than being a super centralized organization where you have central budget, and like probably the Bybit, the way they run in a bigger chunks of regions, and they have a different business model than us. But the model we applied helped us to grow faster and to be like a hyper focus on particular niche and bringing the tool and product that people in that particular country need that they might not need in another part of the world.
Yeah, we adapted the same structure quite recently. First, I was a global BD, and then indeed we localize it. So every country will have their own country managers, like BitGet has, because again, someone based in Dubai, our headquarters are also in Dubai, doesn't know what's happening in Germany or in Netherlands or whatever. So you need those localized people with their localized teams, and you oversee it from the headquarters, and you try to localize as best as possible.
Is it also a reason for exchanges to narrow down their focus on certain parts of the world and not try to get like market share in every single country and every single continent anymore? Because I can imagine if you want to have local people in every single country, it's going to be one hell of a job to manage all of that.
I think you are going down into rabbit hole, especially in a European example, because, for example, I always say like what I don't like about MiCA regulations is that as a startup, as a business, I would rather hire 3 developers than 3 lawyers. But more regulation forces us to go and have a physical presence that then it will become a choice. Is a particular country to be at, is profitable to go eventually hire 5 people on the ground, or whether we just like withdraw from that market. And there will be so many countries that will overestimate their importance, and they will be losing in this game, both innovation wise and both opportunities for everyday user. And because let's not forget that every exchange, like a global exchange like us, is a gateway for someone in a remote country with an internet connection to participate in a global financial system.
Yeah.
So to simplify it, perhaps, is it that the regulations are forcing you to implement some traditional finance?
Definitely, because regulations are made by traditional financiers.
That's it. Yeah.
That's how it happens. Like I've been recently consulting a government. They were doing a legal frame, but I told them that your only shortcoming is that this legal frame is complicated and you don't have enough trained lawyers and professionals to even go through the applications, let alone someone taking you to the court. And how many, judges and baristas you have that understand how crypto works and they can make a judgment on that particular case? Zero.
Right.
Okay, so next up in the podcast is the new, well, not so new anymore, format about the object that we bring we ask our guests to bring. Meyade, do you bring a certain object that holds significance to you?
Yes, for sure. It's going to be my wedding ring. I've been married for a while now to my wife Nasera. I mean, I've been in this space almost 10 years now. It has been an incredible journey, but I wouldn't be where I was right now without my wife. She is my supporting factor in this space. You tend to work a lot, especially for an Asian company as a Western employee. It's different, and it's always good, to get back home, to see my wife there. Just call me and just relax and just go on. I mean, I don't have a family yet. I don't have kids, but I do see from a lot of people that have kids that it gives you a new way of why you do what you do, right? I mean, if you're in this space for 10 years, most of the time you have your financial goals already set, material-wise. You can always get more, but, I'm also a faithful person. There is, it's just material, right? It doesn't go with you when you die. But for me, it's great to have a wife and in the future to have kids, to pass on whatever I've learned in this world, to pass it on to them so they can proceed to go on with it. So, my wedding ring is, in that sense, really important to me.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Love it.
You're such a romantic, right?
You're scoring points here.
My wife will be happy.
Yes, she will be.
All good men are married and taken, I guess.
I guess so. Thank you.
Yeah, and actually the same question to you. Do you also bring an object that holds significance to you?
I do. Like I've been like traditionally trained because I come from a Middle Eastern family and education was very important for us. And traditional education always taught us, you have to write an essay, minimum 5,000 words, and all these like things that always was a very big burden for me. And when we stepped into adulthood, I realized that people actually don't want to hear the short story long. Everyone wants to hear the long story short. And it became a significant, important factor for me to save everyone else's time. And therefore, I constantly wear a watch on my wrist even though most of the time I check the time on my mobile phone.
Yeah.
And especially I travel a lot, and like I never do this, but it serves as a reminder for me, like how to not steal people's time or how to respect other people's time. And believe me, as someone from Middle East, it's very hard for me to be on time. And it's like an extra layer of training that
Right.
you have always keep in your mind, that it is very important. And you have to always respect other people's time, and then you can demand other people also respect your time, which we definitely miss in Middle East. But it served a great chance for me to succeed in such a very fierce industry, especially run by the Southeast Asian colleagues of mine, because they are the majority, and people in Southeast Asia are also like very respectful, always on time. And I think having a watch in my wrist, even though I don't use it for its purpose, serves as a good reminder that we have to be always on time.
Nice.
Great story.
Love the story indeed. Yeah. We go to the quick question round.
And the last one,
And the last one, I'm sorry, I was taking a sip of water. Sorry, but the moon boy was fast. The last one is a yes or no.
Okay.
Yeah, Ilko. So it's up to you now to ask the first question to Meyade and then to Vegar.
Meyade, first question. Let's go. Bitcoin to $1 million in 10 years.
Yes, I do believe so. I do believe, as Satoshi Nakamoto said something it's either going to go to 0 or to 1 million.
Yeah.
And I hope it's going to happen within 10 years.
let's hope it's going to be the million, not the 0. Otherwise, we're all out of a job.
Let's keep it positive, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible, but the question is what we can buy with that million. If it's just a can of soda, then it is not the
Sure.
million we want.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Fair point indeed. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, that's kind of the. Okay. Vegar, do you have a hero?
I don't believe in heroes. I hate when people put, I don't know, especially like other humanly beings as a pedestal and we worship them, and after 10 years we realize that they were not good people. Therefore I don't have any heroes and I don't believe in them. But I believe in in our culture, like in Turkish side of the things or in Islam culture, there's this phenomenon called Khidr. It's like a prophet that comes and helps people who are in worse situations of the life, and it's like a miracle. But actually it is a hypothetical case because he represents every person who helps other person in a bad situation and save that, and then we tell that, oh, you saved me as the prophet Khidr. And I believe that there are heroes in small situations that save people and save each other rather than having the one big savior of everyone.
Do you have a hero?
No, either. Also looking at my own religion, I think that is enough for me. I get a lot of strength from that, a lot of guidance on that one. On the other side, I have a lot of people into my journey that helped me in my journey and mentored me on that journey. But no hero, no superhero either.
Next one. If there's one advice you could give to a beginning retail trader, what would it be?
So what I tell to retail traders is, we all know at a certain point, if you put money on your bank account, it loses value, right? You still see
Right.
100 euros, but it loses value. You cannot buy your Turkish pizza anymore, right? It gets more expensive. your groceries, etc., etc.
Right.
And if you tell them, it's like, yeah, you're right, actually. Okay, so what do you do then to, save your, purchasing power? Well, you start investing. And if you understand that part, then it's like, okay, so I have to start investing because I can save my purchasing power by investing. So my advice will be look into this one, start with financial education and start with the first question, why should you be investing? And if you answer that question, then the world opens to you.
Right. Same question.
For me, trading is the only profession that people who is not traditionally trained can beat a traditional trained person. A doctor who went to university cannot ever be beaten doctor who self-taught. Neither the tailor nor the designer, and so on and so on and so on. And now I have a question. To be able to attend average university, you need, I don't know, anywhere between $10,000 to $100,000. how much is the actual learning tuition fee for a trader, and every money you lose is actually a tuition fee that you're putting forward. And that is my idea for beginners, that you will definitely lose money, but try to learn from it and not to repeat the same mistake, and consider it your tuition money.
Nice. Thanks.
What restaurant should everyone go to in Dubai? What kitchen do they have?
Oh my God, there are so many restaurants, but my favorite is whenever you find this small neighborhood shop where usually you can't sit there, but you can drive your car, order, and they deliver in your car and you go eat at your home. And my favorite is called For You. It is For and You. It is nearby in Barsha. It is a Manai shop. It is like a Middle Eastern pizza and place, and they have a nice karak. And it's very affordable. Like for 50 dirhams, we can all eat.
For 50 dirhams?
Yes, it's like $10.
Whoa, for 5 people.
We have to go there.
Exactly.
That's one thing, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's one restaurant that holds a special place in my heart. I go there always with my wife. It's called Public. I think it's a pretty mainstream one. It has a beautiful location. It has a chill one. A lot of locals go there, so I think that's always a good sign. I mean, I'm not from here, but if you see locals, then it's a good sign. And yeah, wonderful place. Everyone should go there and try the Buffalo Wings pizza. Yeah,
nice.
It's
Noted.
It's a good one. Oh, and the tiramisu.
Do not forget the
Do
tiramisu.
not forget one.
We're going for lunch after, Bart, so don't worry.
So the last one,
The yes or no.
the yes or no question. So here we go. Within 2 years, every exchange will only have 100 tradable pairs.
No, definitely no.
No.
No?
No.